أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه Rabbi işrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul uqdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli. Assalamu alaikum ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Welcome to the reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you get your podcasts or at the website www.reflections-rn.org. Or you can watch the recordings on YouTube at the channel Reflections RN. And again, you can access the video recordings at the website www.reflections-rn.org. Whether you listen to the podcast or watch the video channel, please subscribe, please hit that like button, please hit that notification button, and please share the links with your friends. Let's spread the word, inshallah. This is Mustafa Tuna, and in this episode we will continue reading the 22nd word. This treatise is composed of two stations, and similar to the 10th word, it starts with a representational story, and from the story we try to move on to reality. So the story serves as an analogy for us to bring reality, the understanding of reality, closer to our minds. It is about the existence, oneness, and some of the attributes of God. It is about the treatise provides demonstrations for monotheism. We read the story and we read the first demonstration. We will have 12 demonstrations altogether. I'm not going to go into details about the story. You can go ahead and listen to the first recording of the 22nd word to understand the story better, inshallah. Now we are looking at demonstrations. Now the thing is, in the first station of the treatise, we go through these demonstrations and we are still in this story. We imagine two brothers who all of a sudden find themselves in a land that they did not know before. One of them recognizes he was fortunate, smart, intelligent, humble, and recognizes that this place must have an owner. The other one does not want to recognize that, and then the fortunate brother provides these demonstrations to the unfortunate and arrogant other brother. So we read through the demonstrations, and then in the second station of the treatise, we will start to look at the reality of these demonstrations. We will move out of the story and we will start to look directly at the cosmos, the world that we live in. So, Bismillah, second demonstration. Gel, bütün bu ovaları, bu meydanları, bu menzilleri süslendiren şeyler üstünde dikkat et. Her birisinde o gizli zattan haber veren işler var. Adeta her biri birer turra, birer sikke gibi o gaybi zattan haber veriyorlar. İşte gözünün önünde bak, bir dirhem pamuktan ne yapıyor? Come, pay attention to the highest, to the things that adorn all these flames. Now, the statement of pay attention is important, and we went over it in the previous episode when we talked about the first demonstration. We reflected upon the first demonstration. This is the abode of wisdom. Things happen in a seeming causal chain of relations in this world. And if one were to focus on the appearance of that causality, one could miss the existence of God. One could miss the existence of what we call in that first demonstration, a hidden hand that is working behind all these things that we observe and that we attribute meanings to. So we need to pay attention. We need to look careful. We need to try to see behind the veil. If we don't do that, if we are stuck on the veil of causes, we will not be able to fulfill the purpose of our existence in this universe, which is to recognize its reality, which is to recognize that it is a demonstration of God. It is a It is something that describes God. It is a sign to God. It is there for us, for a test that we are involved in, and the test is for us to be able to read the meanings of those signs accurately, and to know our Lord as a result. So we need to pay attention. We need to move beyond the veil of superficiality. Okay, we need to move beyond heedlessness. We need to care. We need to wonder. We need to be curious about. We need to feel the necessity to evaluate what we see around us and make sense of them. We need to pierce through the veil and get to reality. We need to feel an urge and need to become aware of, to have an understanding of reality. We need to recognize reality as reality is. So, gel bütün bu ovaları, bu meydanları, bu menzilleri süslendiren şeyler üzerinde dikkat et. So, come, pay attention to the things that adorn all these plains, these arenas, and these dwellings. So we are looking at this, the two brothers found themselves in this land, and they are looking around and they see plains, arenas, large areas, dwellings. There are creatures that are living in structures. In each one of them, there are affairs that inform about that hidden person. So we looked around in the first demonstration and noticed that the things that are happening here cannot be happening on their own. The force, the wisdom, the intelligence, the knowledge, the sight, the awareness, and so on and so forth, that is necessary for what we observe here to be happening to happen is not anywhere in what we observe. It's not anywhere where we see. So if it is not anywhere in the things that we see, if we think of this as a box or a house, it is not anywhere in the house, or it's not anywhere in the box. It must be behind the walls of the house or the box, right? So that there is a hidden hand, hidden agent that is doing all these things. In each one of them, there are affairs that inform about that hidden person. It is as though they each are informing about that unseen person like a royal monogram or a stamp. Now, what this means is royal monogram, or turra or tugra, and stamp is stamp. When a sultan, for instance, sent a decree to one of his subjects to identify himself as the author of the decree, he would put his royal monogram on the decree, right? Or when a master, a craftsman makes, say, a bronze tray, right? Somewhere on that, this craftsman puts a stamp of his name to indicate that he is the master, the craftsman who made this this tray. Or we see this in artworks, right? Pictures, and so on and so forth. So authors, craftsmen, people who make things identify themselves as the author of that object by putting a stamp by, or if it's a sultan, or to identify himself as the author of the decree by putting a royal monogram on it. In that way, this fortunate brother says that wherever we look, all the artifacts we see around have a royal monogram, a stamp on it. There is an indication on them. There is a sign on them that says that this is meaningful. It points to something, and it is made by the one who wants you to recognize that meaning. And the ultimate meaning is that it does not exist in and of itself. It is created by an author, and this author has created all these things, has made all these things for a purpose, and you have a function in the larger scheme of the things that are happening here too, because you are part of it. It is as though they each are informing about that unseen person like a royal monogram or a stem. So this will become more concrete. Here, before your eyes, look what he makes from a dirham of cotton. So we will look at, so that in that land they had cotton too, and we will look at a small amount of 3-point-something grams of cotton, right? So everything has signs, everything has indications, everything has monograms. Not even a tiny piece of cotton is excluded from this general observation. And therefore, let's look at this tiny piece of cotton, 1 dirham of cotton, and see what it is telling us. Now, throughout this treatise, Ustad Nursi interjects some side notes to explain things a little bit more in this story. And here we have one of those side notes. It says, haşiye, tohuma işarettir. Mesela zerre gibi bir afyon bözrü, bir dirhem gibi bir zerdali nüvatı, bir kavun çekirdeği, nasıl çuhadan daha güzel dokunmuş yapraklar, patiskadan daha beyaz ve sarı çiçekler, şekerlemeden daha tatlı ve köftelerden ve konserve kutularından daha latif, daha leziz, daha şirin meyveleri hazine-i rahmetten getiriyorlar, bize takdim ediyorlar. So this is side note 3. We had 2 of them before. And that small dirham of cotton, Ustad Nursi says in the story, points to the seed, right? Seeds in general. For example, how a particle like poppy seed, like a poppy seed is really, really small. It's like a particle. How a particle like poppy seed, apricot pits weighing about a dirham, and a melon seed bring from the treasure of mercy and present to us leaves woven more beautifully than broadcloth, flowers more white and yellow than calico, fruits sweeter than delights, and more subtle, more delicious, and more lovely than dessert balls or canned preserves. So we need to, again, pay attention. With a superficial look, we will not be able to recognize what Ustad Nursi is telling us here. He is telling us that, look, there's a particle like poppy seed, so small, or a, again, very tiny apricot pit, or a melon seed. You plant it in the soil, you give some water, sunlight shines, there's a certain temperature, oxygen, nitrogen, whatever is involved in that whole process of the growth or creation of the poppy plant or the apricot tree or the melon plant, whatever is involved there. If you look at this with a superficial look, what you see will be what you saw before throughout your life. When you were 2 years old, one day your father took you to a garden where you saw a melon and you asked, oh, where did this come from? Or what is this? They told you melon. And then when you ate the melon, there came out seeds from it. And you were playing with them and they said, see, we plant this, we put this in the soil and there comes out the melon. And you made that association and now it feels normal to you. You say, okay, yeah, melons come out of melon seed. Fine, yes, melon comes out of melon seed, but the melon seed does not make the melon. The melon seed does not have the ability to make the melon. And then you also associate it with soil, and you know that when the melon seed and the soil come together. But again, this is not the cause of the melon. The soil and the melon seed put together does not make the melon. The soil does not have the power to do that. The soil does not have the awareness to do that. Does not have the consciousness to do that. So we need to be more careful about our recognition of what causes what, right? Because when the melon seed is there, you're eating. Sorry, when the melon is in front of you, sliced into cubes maybe, and you're eating it, the melon seed is not there any longer. The soil is not there any longer. The sunshine is not there any longer if you're eating in a room, right? When it goes to your stomach, none of these are there. It's a completely different environment and completely different combinations of things, but the melon still exists. What is causing it to exist, continue to exist? What is sustaining it with its properties, right, in time? And what is sustaining the time? So when you think about causality, do not understand it as succession of things, regular, normal, familiar succession of things. That is not causality, right? That is the appearance of causality. But to understand really what is causing this thing, you need to think about, okay, this melon is in front of me. The seed is not there. The soil is not there. Nothing is there, but it still exists. What is it that makes it exist, and that makes it exist with all these attributes that it has, right? Now, that was the first demonstration. In the second demonstration, we are looking into something further, right? And we will understand what that further is when we read more. But for now, we should think about this phenomenon that we observe in the universe like seeds. A poppy seed, and then there pops up the poppy plant. An apricot pit, and then a few years later you have this huge apricot tree. How is that happening, right? How are these tiny, unconscious, ignorant, lifeless, or if there's life, there's a very primitive level of life, objects bringing about or giving way to these other objects that are much more complicated and that are all of benefit to me as a human being or to other things around it. All these leaves that are as though you had a piece of cotton and somebody used that cotton to weave a beautiful fabric. All of these delightful, sweet, delicious, tasty things that came out of that piece of wood, or what seemed to be a piece of wood. How is this happening? This is the question. Bak, kaç top çuha ve patiska ve çiçekli kumaş çıktı. Bak ondan ne kadar şekerlemeler, yuvarlak tatlı köfteler yapılıyor ki bizim gibi binler adam giyse ve yese kafi gelir. Look how many rolls of broadcloth, calico, and fabric with floral prints came out of it. So that piece of cotton that we imagine in the story, right? It was just a piece of cotton, but from it, so quantitatively too, it is not, you can make a little bit of calico or a little bit of broadcloth or a little bit of fabric with floral prints or whatever from a piece of cotton. No, this is not what we are seeing here. We see a tiny bit of cotton, like the seed that grew into a huge tree, tiny bit of cotton, and from it there came out many rolls of broadcloth, calico, and fabric with floral prints and so on and so forth. How many sugary delights and sweet dessert balls are made from them, that they would be sufficient if people like us wore and ate them. So if you all wore and ate them, and we all wear and ate them in this world, in reality, right? It is sufficient. A tiny bit of cotton, and then it grew somehow, something that did not exist in the cotton or in its environment came into existence, and what came into existence is of tremendous benefit to us, and it is sufficient for our needs. How did that happen? Again, try to pay attention, be careful, try to focus, get beyond the veil of causality to really understand what is going on here. Hem de bak, bu demiri, toprağı, suyu, kömürü, bakırı, gümüşü, altını gaybi avucuna aldı, bir et parçası yaptı. Bak gör. Also look, he took this iron, dirt, water, coal, copper, silver, and gold in his unseen hand, and as though like he took them in his hand and kneaded them and squeezed them into something and made a lump of meat. Look, see, right? So the perhaps one of the most important pieces in this treatise is like see, right? Pay attention, look, see. Now we have another side note here. Haşiye, unsurlardan cismi hayvani halk ve nutfeden zihayatı icat etmeye işarettir. Side note 4. So what is this? There are all these materials, then that unseen hand as though took in his hand and made them into a lump of meat. So what does this point to? It points to bringing animal bodies into existence from elements and the possessors of life from sperms. So there's another miracle here. Material, lifeless elements somehow come together, hold on to each other, and function as a living object, and even consciousness is given to them in some cases. How is this happening? How is this happening? This is miraculous. And you may remember that we talked about the concept of miracle, right? It comes from the word ajada, to incapacitate. It is incapacitating, or it is manifesting incapacity, impotence, right? The gold, the iron, the dirt, the water, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the whatever parts and components you can identify in these living objects, be it a plant or an animal or a human being. None of those components is capable of doing what the end result is. It is not capable in and of itself. It is not capable of functioning harmoniously with the other elements that go into this process either, right? Something is holding them, and there is a consciousness, there's an awareness, there is knowledge, there is wisdom in this whole thing. It is everything in it are serving a purpose, right? Especially when we look at living objects. Life is very subtle, very transparent, in that you cannot see it or attribute it to the things that you see around here, right? You may have that delusion that perhaps the earth pulled the apple, and that's why the apple fell, right? You may have that delusion if you are attributing the actual causality to the earth. That's delusion. Otherwise, it is just the observation of a pattern that God has created in his creation, right? But when it comes to life, you can't see it like the way you see the apple and the earth. You can't really identify where it is coming from, but it is coming from somewhere, right? These matters of iron, dirt, water, coal, copper, silver, gold, and keep going on. And the more there is, the more complicated it becomes, right? They cannot do that. And this points to the bringing into existence of animal bodies from elements and the possessors of life from sperms. İşte ey akılsız adam, bu işler öyle bir zata mahsustur ki bütün bu memleket bütün eczasıyla onun mucize-i kuvveti altında duruyor. Her arzusuna rağm oluyor. Look, oh mindless person. So now remember the story. There's a unfortunate mindless person, and then there is his brother or friend who is trying to explain reality to this mindless person. Oh mindless person, these affairs are exclusive to such a person that this entire country and all its parts exist under his miraculous power and submit to his wishes. Either all these things have the power to do, have the knowledge and consciousness and sight and so on and so forth to do what they are doing. The oxygen atom has the ability to be aware of the hydrogen atom, and the hydrogen atom likewise has the ability to be aware of the oxygen atom. They are seeing each other and they are working together. Either that's the case, or there is a hidden hand, an overriding power that is beyond and above and in charge of everything that's here. And that's what we see. We see his hidden hand working behind the veil of these appearances and actually doing things. We see his hand as the actual agent of what is going on here. So we see two things here. One, from a small piece of cotton, or from it's tiny piece of something, many things came out. And then from lots of different things, one thing came out. And in both cases, what came out is functional, beautiful, structural, wisdomful, right? And that is the world that we observe around. From one thing, many things come, and from many things, one thing come. We eat lots of different food items. We eat plants, we eat meat, we eat grains, we drink water, and all of them somehow turn into our body and the parts of our body. So everything that we eat put together becomes an eye, becomes a fingertip, a nail. Everything that we eat put together becomes our actions, movements, becomes flesh and bone. But all of them work together in the system to turn into flesh. Or in the other case, from one item, that tiny seed, which is a limited number of things, there comes out this huge tree, or an air molecule, say an oxygen element, an atom of oxygen in the air, goes into our body and serves the purpose of respiration, goes into the plant and does something else there. Let's say carbon, right? It goes into the plant and is involved in photosynthesis. At the same time, it helps to transmit the air. So it is doing many things. One thing is doing many things. And that one thing does not have the power or awareness, knowledge, wisdom of even one of the things that it does. So while this is the case, everything becomes one thing becomes everything. What that means is that this can only happen under the control of someone who has control over everything, that everything is under his power, right? This is the only way it can happen. Again, Ustad Nursi repeatedly says, look, see, get beyond that familiarity that you have developed in the course of your life. That's the important part here. These are miraculous. If we could think deeply, attentively about it, these are miraculous. The challenge is in recognizing the miraculousness of what we are observing. Because again, we are veiled by this notion of normalcy that we came to call nature, or causes, or laws, or whatever the name is, right? As long as we don't recognize that it is not something that inheres in what we see here, we are missing the point, because it is a hidden hand. It is above and beyond. It is doing things from behind the veil. All right, we came to the third demonstration. Gel bu müteharrik antika sanatlarına bak. Her birisi öyle bir tarzda yapılmış. Adeta bu koca sarayın bir küçük nüshasıdır. Bütün bu sarayda ne varsa o küçücük müteharrik makinelerde bulunuyor. Come, look at these moving antique artifacts that are his. They are each made in such a fashion that they are as though small copies of this massive palace. Whatever exists in this palace exists in those small and moving machines. And this has a side note. Let's read that too before we reflect. Hayvanlara ve insanlara işarettir. Zira hayvan şu alemin küçük bir fihristesi ve mahiyeti insaniye şu kainatın bir misali musaggarı olduğundan adeta alemde ne varsa insanda numunesi vardır. So this points to animals and people, for an animal is a small index of this realm, and since human quiddity is a condensed similitude of this cosmos, it is as though whatever exists in the realm exists in the human being. Okay, once again, come, look at these moving antique artifacts. Don't just pass by. Don't just stare at them without noticing what they are. Look at them. Look. This is the technique of recognizing, realizing reality as reality is. You look. Okay? Come, look at these moving antique artifacts that are his. They are each made in such a fashion that they are as though small copies of this massive palace. So these our two brothers came to this land and they are observing things around them and they find this object that they can hold in their hand. Small, but moving, has warmth. It looks like it has consciousness. And they look at it and they start to notice that whatever exists in the cosmos, there is something corresponding to it in this. Either as a small sampler of it, or as something that just corresponds and has a relationship with. So when they look at this object, they see that it has eyes, and they recognize, because they have eyes too, they know what eyes are, or they understand what eyes are. They look at that, it has eyes, and there is light out there in the world, and there are colors. It has a nose, and it can smell, and they notice that there are smells out there in the world. It has ears, they recognize it can hear, and there are sounds in the world. Subhanallah. Glory be to the one who made it this way. So it's a tiny object, but it's as though a small sampler of the entire world. Now, if we move the bar a bit higher, then we look at the human being, and even though for the animal the entire world is limited to the world that it can see, smell, hear, touch, taste, and sometimes there are other senses that animals have. Say, some animals can recognize the magnetic fields of the world, or can recognize heat in ways different from us, or maybe recognize radioactivity, whatever, right? The animal, so this is pointing to an animal, right? Even though it is like miraculous, it has all these things that correspond to the rest of the world. When you raise the bar a bit higher and you come to the human being, what you see is that the world of the human being is not limited to what the human being can see, touch, hear, smell, and taste. No, the human being has intellect, the human being has imagination, the human being has other senses that expand its world even further. And even there, what you see is that what is out there in the cosmos, there is something that's corresponding to it in the human being. So when you move to the human being, it's as though the human being is a small similitude of this cosmos. Now, sometimes you open a book and it has this page of contents, the contents page. It has chapter titles, and then sometimes it can be even more detailed, and it can have titles for subsections in the book. In the old times, they used to make really detailed indexes for books where you could read the chapter, a very not precise, a summary of the chapter, and then a subsection, and this is on this, and so on this would be what the subsection's argument or claim or subject is, and then you would have, so this is on this, and then this is on this, this is on this. The human being is like that. In that index, you don't have the entire book. The entire book is perhaps 600 pages, and the entire index is maybe 6 pages. So the entire cosmos is big. They say 14 billion light years. We can't even imagine it. It is so big, and the human being compared to the entire universe, not the cosmos, because the cosmos should include the unseen realm too, but the universe is the seen realm, right? The seen realm, at least, is so big, and the cosmos, including the unseen realm, is even bigger than that. But there is something corresponding to what is out there in the human being. There is something corresponding to, not something, there's everything corresponding to even God in human existence. We have our conscience, right? It is like an innate compass that shows truth and reality. Our conscience has the ability to recognize that there is a creator, there is a hidden hand working behind all of these things, right? So that fortunate brother, that his conscience was pure, uncorrupted. We have this faculty that those who have access to higher levels of knowledge have identified as the secret that is attached to the human heart, and its function is to know God. To know God. We all know God. We don't know how we know, right? I mean, if we use our intellect, we can formulate things, and the way we are doing now, we can develop demonstrations and observations that point to God, and we can see the signs of creation. We can put 2 and 2 together and recognize that it makes 4, right? But even before that, we have this sense of knowing God, right? So whatever is out there in the cosmos, there's something corresponding to it in the human being. Now, there are 7 billion, 8 billion human beings. And if you think of the history of this, right there, we don't know how far back it goes, but billions and billions and billions of human beings that lived in this world. they each were like this, like a small similitude, a condensed similitude of the entire cosmos. How can, now the question is rhetorical, of course, how can someone or anything, not someone, how can anything that does not have an awareness and knowledge of the entire cosmos and a perfect knowledge of the entire cosmos make something so simple, so small, and compared to the larger thing, infinitesimally small, but condense the entire thing in this small thing, right? Again, because we are familiar with all of these, right? Because we know what human nature is from our experience and observation and familiarity, it may sound like, yeah, so what? Like, there is light and I see even the animal part of my existence, my body, right? Even that has all these corresponding things. There is light and I see. There is, molecules in the air and I smell. That's not like that. No, this is not random. This is too perfect to be random. This is too structured to be random. This is too organized to be random. This is too functional to be random. This is too purposeful to be random. It's not random. There is smell out there, and somebody gave you the sense of smell. Whoever created the smell created your nose, and whoever created your nose created you, knowing the function of your nose in your entire overall existence, all the way to its place, size, the energy that it consumes in your body, the various stages of evolution that happens as your body evolves from a tiny sperm into the larger animal that it is now. That's amazing. If you don't recognize how amazing this is, or I don't, right? Because I don't from time to time, there is a problem with this, with our ability to be aware of what is going on around our world, that we may be falling into heedlessness, right? We may be desensitized by our familiarity. That is why in this story, we had these brothers wash in a pool, lose all their senses, right? And what that means is that all their desensitization throughout their lives and come to life again in this new, what appears to them as new land, ready to have wonder and investigate everything to discover, right? Ready to discover. You need to be ready to discover. Inshallah, inshallah. And again, if we look carefully, what we see is there is this moving object. And then when we raise the bar higher to the human being, there is this conscious, intelligent moving object. And it is like a condensed similitude of the entire universe. And there is a message in this. This has a point. All right. Hiç mümkün müdür ki bu sarayın ustasından başka birisi gelip bu acayip sarayı küçük bir makinede derc etsin? Hem hiç mümkün müdür ki bir kutu kadar bir makine bütün bir alemi içine aldığı halde tesadüfi veyahut abes bir iş içinde bulunsun? Is it at all possible that someone other than the master of this palace shall come and concentrate this amazing palace in a small machine? Right? Imagine it. Someone who will come and concentrate this entire palace in a small machine, but not own that palace, not know that entire palace, right? The cosmos, right? Someone who does not have the awareness of, knowledge of, vision of, power to control. How is that person going to grasp, right? Because that person is either in the cosmos or outside the cosmos. If it is in the cosmos, it is smaller than the cosmos. And how is it going to grasp the entire cosmos in this way? The famous example is, think of a microbe on your molar tooth, right? Can this microbe grasp you as you are? Can this microbe make a tiny object even tinier than the microbe, and that will be moving and very artful, and at the same time that will be a condensed similitude of your entire existence, right? So that something is either in the cosmos, then smaller than the cosmos, and it cannot then grasp the entire cosmos in order to condense it into one tiny thing, even if that thing had the power to do anything, right? To condense and to make things, etc. Won't have the knowledge, right? So how can it be? Is it at all possible that someone other than the master of this palace shall come and concentrate this amazing palace in a small machine? Is it at all possible that something coincidental or futile shall exist in a machine that is as small as a box yet contains the entire realm? Now, if once we recognize that this is done by someone, right, and we recognize that this someone is tremendous, has knowledge of everything, and doing things in such wise ways in this entire creation, and we see that this tiny small box contains everything that's out there in the cosmos, right? From ourselves, from our own understanding of what awareness means, what art means, what making things means, right? We know that this cannot be coincidental. This cannot be futile. It cannot be coincidental. That's actually more clear, right? Because if it were coincidental, it would have to happen without a conscious being consciously doing it, because coincidence cannot be with conscious. Coincidence implies absence of conscious, and we can see that this is being done by a conscious being. But the next question is it futile? Is it doing it just for the sake of doing it? No, that doesn't make sense. There is a message here, right? That is what the intellect is telling us. That is what our conscience is telling us. We look and we feel, we recognize that there is something going on here, right? Demek bütün gözün gördüğü ne kadar antika makineler var, o gizli zatın birer sikkesi hükmündedirler. Belki birer dellal, birer ilanname hükmündedirler. Lisan-ı halleriyle derler ki, biz öyle bir zatın sanatıyız ki bütün bu alemimizi biz yaptığı ve suhuletle icat ettiği gibi kolaylıkla yapabilir bir zattır. So we see that it is not futile. We see that it's not coincidental. We see that it cannot be done by anybody other than someone who is outside this cosmos, right? It's greater than this cosmos, has knowledge of this cosmos, has power over this cosmos. We recognize all of this, and then we also recognize that this is a a conscious act. This is intended. This is purposeful. This is not coincidental. This is not futile. We recognize all of these, and then we say, in that case, however many antique machines exist that the eye sees. So remember, this was an antique machine, a moving antique machine. So it corresponds to animals and human beings. However many antique machines, animals and human beings, insects, fish, exist that the eye sees, they are each in effect stamps of that hidden person. So their effect is, their meaning is that they are stamps of that hidden person, and then the stamp analogy, as we explained, is an identifier. That person, and we will have a representational story about this that's going to explain it even further and make the whole point very clear, that it is like a made in sign on products that we see, or it is like the brand name on boxes of the products that we buy. It is like a stamp that someone puts on in order to identify himself as the author or maker of this product that we have in our hands. In that case, however many antique machines exist that the eye sees, they are each in effect stamps of that hidden person. In fact, they are each in effect a crier, an announcer, each a proclamation. So they are announcers, but they are announcement. They are proclaiming, but they are also proclamations for us to read, for us to read and proclaim. That gives human beings this the conscious seeing, intelligent creature that human beings are, that gives them a second purpose beyond the purposes of all these existent beings as proclamations and criers, right? They announce, and they are announcements. The human beings also announces and is an announcement, but the human being also has the function of reading the announcements of other objects and proclaiming them too, one by one and as a whole. So the human being is the crier of the entire cosmos before the creator of the cosmos, reading their message to, reading their the indication of the existence of the creator of the cosmos, reading their message to the creator, their supplications to the creator of the cosmos. When we say Subhanallah, we are in a position to say Subhanallah on behalf of the entire creation. When we say, oh God, have mercy on us, we are in a position to say that on behalf of the entire creation. All these tiny animals, all these insects, all the birds flying in the air, all the fish swimming in the ocean, we are in a position to ask for mercy for all of them. We are proclaimers, and we are proclaimers based on what we have in ourselves and based on what we see in the entire realm too. They say with the tongue of their states. So we human beings have two ways to speak. One is to indications, signs, gestures, mimics. If I make with my hand, this sign, I'm indicating to somebody like come toward me. If I raise my hand or raise my finger, it indicates that I want to say something. We have all these ways of communicating, and then we have speech, the speech that we articulate with our mouths, and we can write on paper, right? Now, other things in the creation also have speech, as animals especially also have speech, but very limited. Their speech is very, very limited, right? Because it's so limited when it comes to lofty issues like the existence of God and the attributes of God, they tend to speak with the tongues of their states. The seed that fell on the soil and perhaps covered with some soil, right? With the tongue of its state, it says, I want to sprout, oh God. Give me the ability to sprout so that I can proclaim your oneness and your attributes out in the air with the magnificence of the tree that is going to, that I have the aptitude to bring about with your grace, with your power, with your assistance, solicitude, right? So they speak with the tongues of their states. We speak with the tongue of our states, and we speak, and you know, when I say gesture, etc., there's another way to it, of course. When we are hungry, we feel hungry. With the tongue of our state of hunger, the weakness that we feel when we are in a dire situation, with the tongue of our state of brokenness, right? We speak with that too, and then we speak with the tongue in an articulate way, right? So all these things, all the animals in the universe, and then add to it all human beings too, but start with the animals because they say with the tongue of their states only. They say, we are the art of such a person that he is a person who can make our entire realm easily as he makes us and brings us into existence with facility. Okay, this is amazing. This is amazing. These things are saying, look, I have things in me corresponding to the entire cosmos or entire universe, and therefore whoever made me can only be the one who made the entire realm, and therefore I am the art of such a person that this entire realm is his art too. There is this correspondence between me and with the entire creation. And once we recognize this is a side note, but once we recognize this, we find a way to witness the oneness, existence, and some of the attributes of God wherever we look. Wherever we look, because while animals are more complete samplers of the universe, so are plants and trees. Less complete, but they are. While plants are, samplers of the universe, so are rocks and pieces of soil or pieces of dead wood. Less complete, but they are samplers of the universe. Everything with the tongues of their state, they are saying this. They are saying that the piece of wood is saying, I am the artifact and art of he who has created and can create the entire cosmos. And therefore, in that piece of wood, we have an indication for the existence and oneness of God, as he makes us and brings us into existence with facility, right? So this is the other thing. This points to God's power. However easy it is to make the piece of wood, right? It's not easy, but let's assume that it's easy to make the piece of wood, right? And then let's start to think about how can a piece of wood can be made, right? How can a piece of wood be made? Well, you first need the tree. Okay, what do you need for the tree? You need soil and sunshine and rain. Oh, okay. Then what do you need for soil and sunshine and rain? You need the earth, you need the sun, you need the atmosphere. Oh, what do you need for the sun and the earth and the atmosphere and so on? So, well, you need the Milky Way, and for that you need the entire cosmos. So for the piece of wood, you need the entire cosmos. Therefore, however easy it is to make the piece of wood, it's that easy to make the cosmos. And when we look around and we see the generosity and the facility in the existence and creation and sustenance of everything, we recognize that, wow, for he who made all of these things one by one and all together, it is easy. His power is absolute, infinite. And there's nothing that has any difficulty for the one who has absolute power. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Okay, inshallah, we will stop here. We read through the third demonstration too. Um, you may have recognized that I'm not in my usual space where I do these recordings. I'm traveling and there was some noise in the background. I don't know if that's going to reflect on the video or not, but if it does, I apologize. It's not, it was not under my control, but inshallah it will be of benefit. Difficulties increase or our tests of our sincerity. When difficulty comes and when we still push through whatever we are supposed to do, inshallah, may God accept, may that be an indication of sincerity. May I have had some sincerity in doing this so that it would be of benefit. Again, please subscribe to the video. Please subscribe to on YouTube. Please subscribe to the podcast if you are listening on podcast. Please like and hit the notification buttons if you are listening on watching on YouTube. Please share the links. Please spread the word. Inshallah, we will meet again in the next episode, reflecting upon the fourth demonstration of the 22nd word. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha as-salawatullah.